Hallo und herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen Folge Wonderful Things. Heute mit einer englischen Ausgabe, das heißt, das ganze Folgende wird jetzt auf Englisch stattfinden. So I'm going to switch languages now. So maybe do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, so my name is Alexis Den Doncker. Assistant postdoc at the University of Basel. So I should be able actually to have this interview, this discussion in German. But yeah, as I've just said, maybe it's not always optimal, for scientific discussion to have my still basic German level.
Absolutely no problem.
But so yeah, basically I did my PhD at the University of Liège when I submitted in 2019, and then I had one postdoctoral year there before I moved to kind of 1/2 maybe before I moved to Basel. So it's been a year that I'm now there in Basel. Yeah.
Very nice. So, as you might know, we are doing this podcast episode because there's a presentation at our institute about your topic. But before we are going into these questions, I want to know what brought you into Egyptology, what made you interested in the subject.
Initially, I had planned to do like Near East archaeology, I must say. So I don't know. I like all these. At that time, I liked all these biblical things and how to correlate, some kind of very ancient sacred text, such as famous as the Bible can be, and actual facts from the ground. And then we had, so it was in Brussels at the Université Libre de Bruxelles, and then we had a teacher there, a professor in Egyptology, Roland Tefnin. We had this course of ancient Egyptian art and archaeology on Friday afternoon, 3 hours in a row, and it was simply fantastic. I mean, it was. So I don't know. I fell in the trap of Egyptology. I didn't plan it, so yes, of course, it interested me, but I didn't imagine how rich it could be, and also how, I don't know, to maybe at the beginning I felt it to be too golden, too shiny, too perfect. So I wanted something a bit, rougher, and then I just figured out that it was just amazing, and I guess it's the way, Professor Roland Tefnin was also sharing his own passion. His eyes were really shining when he was giving the explanation. So I guess by then I knew that I wanted to continue to carry on in the field of Egyptology, and then I did my master thesis on the tomb of Sennefer in the Theban necropolis, which is quite famous. I focused more on the cult chapel, which is less known because, at that time the University of Brussels had already the concession to work there, and so I had the opportunity to have this new material to study, and then I just continued, and I always thought, maybe to next year it stops, because you never know in Egyptology how long the way. I mean, it can always stop. And then since then I've just continued. So yeah, I cross my fingers to be able to carry on my researches as long as I wish, although I know that it's a very privileged position to stand here, 3,500 years later, and to spend so many hours, thinking about all these dead people, and they would be probably so happy to hear us speaking so well about them. So, yeah.
that's a question I always ask myself. How would they react knowing that a lot of people are doing a lot of research about their culture and their history? So once you fall into the trap, you can't escape.
You can't escape.
So, I mean, you kind of already teased it a little bit, but what is a specific Egyptological field that interests you the most?
Well, in Belgium there is this tradition about the ancient Egyptian art history. So first of all, so I was not in the proper Egyptology department. I was in art history and archaeology. So how I entered the field of Egyptology was through the lens of art history. And so yes, I guess painting is something that I like the most, not because I find them beautiful. It's only because what strikes me is that we can really detect human being, I mean, actual people behind them. And maybe the best image to illustrate this is that, you know, in Theban tombs we often come across fingerprints of painters. You know, they had the red paints or whatever color, and they really cleaned their, obviously.
And you can see the scraping on the walls.
Yeah. And this is to me what connects me the best with this ancient world and these ancient people. This really, I guess, gives me emotion. So yeah, all these objects, all these monuments, these buildings, to me only matter on the condition that you really detect the actual people behind them or within them. I don't know. You see my point?
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds very interesting because I think sometimes we forget that everything we see at exhibitions or in museums, it is actually made by humans. Mm-hmm. So there were actual people working on it and spending their life with the monument or the painting or whatever we see. So it's really interesting because these days we have machines doing all the work, and in ancient Egypt, of course, it was all very, very traditional, working with hand. So, which brings me directly into the topic. So today you are going to have a presentation. I don't know if I can have the correct title. So, would you please point out your title once more, because I'm not sure if I can remember it completely.
I think I named it "Interactions with Images in the Theban Necropolis." So basically that was the topic of my PhD. The idea was to balance our modern views on these beautiful, monuments, something that still fascinates. Most of us, but also the tourists. So it's really like, it's easy for local guides, to bring people there and to make them, have a nice day. And then, so this leads us to discuss a lot about and to comment on these paintings. So one of the first question I had was, what did the ancient Egyptian think about that? What was their, perspective on tomb decoration? And I didn't want to come to these, reception things under the prism of, we could say, Bildwissenschaft, so all these theories about how an image is built, constructed. I wanted to have real human comments, and as it happens, ancient visitors to this tomb left some comments, left reactions, interacted with these decorative settings, and one of the most explicit reaction is the graffiti or the pinti, which we happen to find there in the chapel, implying that they were accessible, at least under some circumstances. And one category of these graffiti are the visitor inscriptions. When they say, I came there and I found this tomb very beautiful. Nefer, nice, beautiful, good.
Maybe to all the listeners, when we try to translate the Middle Egyptian or hieroglyphs into our language, there's a word that's called nefer, and you can translate it into beautiful or pretty. So especially the queens or the gods were described as beautiful. So yeah, just a side fact.
And so these explicit reactions to images, because they are really, placed on on some kind of key locations on the wall itself. So they allow us to think about how these people engage with these images and we can try therefore to interpret how they really felt in this place and what was their perspective. So of course this requires a lot of methodological precautions, because you can very quickly project your own things on these things, and this begins only with how we translate the term nefer. Can be good, can be nice, can be pleasant, can be perfect, and it's on different level of meaning. Can be aesthetically good, morally good, can also be. And so but at least there was a way to approach this tomb decoration from ancient perspectives. I like the plural, this is what I'm going to talk about tonight.
That's extremely interesting. So, I mean, you already talked about how you got into the research, but I'm interested in why do you like it? So what is the factor that makes you say, I want to keep doing that, I want to keep doing research?
I was very lucky during these years of PhD research. I was very lucky to be able to enter quite a number of Theban tomb chapels and make good photographic documentation. So I have a good database now. And each time I go I navigate, among these data, I always find something new. Always. And so it's always like I have some different colors. This is a red thing. Should be a purple thing. This is a yellow. It's some kind of personal coding which I have. And what I'm saying is that each time I go there, I find something new. Meaning that the way we look at these things, although we think we know them like by heart, and it's true that when you spend hours in a monument, you begin to really remember the things, but still it always differs. Each time I look at these images, I see something new, meaning that even the way I look at them evolves through time. I guess this is according to my new mindset, new things that stimulate me. Before this is one of my current project is about the varnishes that some painters used in some tombs at a certain moment, and I know that I had pictures of these varnishes already made in 2010 or 11, and I began to look at them only in 2017, maybe like 7 years. So I didn't even spot them. It's something like you really see according to. This is something also I want to show tonight. You really see according to what's in your mind, what interests you. Like here, all these books. Obviously, when I don't know them or when I don't recognize them, they are maybe less meaningful, or they're meaningful from another perspective, as those that I know maybe better, like those, you know, the green and white. I know it's Monumenta Egyptica because there's this Brussels, the only Brussels series. So of course, there I have something different with them, you know. It really affects the way I look at all the room. It's like their appeal, their appeal is different from maybe the Karnak here in black, which I have to read the title to interact with them. Although I know the series Karnak, you see what I mean? So it really affects.
Totally.
And so I think this is the reason why I know the Theban tomb painting is that it's an endless world.
At first, it's very strange to think about the fact that you visit a place a lot of times, and it's not going to change because it's long gone. The culture and the dynasty is long gone, but still you always find something new. And maybe to add on it for the viewers, we are sitting in the library of our institute, so we are surrounded by books, and I like how I get reminded when I get to know other fields in Egyptology that it's not only about translating or just memorizing facts about the history. It's also about a psychological aspect, because we have a specific kind of view on things regarding how our society works or what we learned in the past. So I think you always have to be a little bit open for new perspectives and new things, and even if you know something, even if it's your specific topic, you always have to be open to get a change in information you already know. So it's extremely interesting, and I think that does not only go for Egyptology. I think that's for every scientific research you do. It's to stay open and see what you can find, and if there's anything new.
I totally agree. And you know, last time I was in the Theban necropolis, it was in October. So a bit more than a month ago. I was very tired, so I had spent the whole night, you know, in the plane. There was a delay at Cairo airport. Saying that, I was there, it was probably 10 in the morning, and I was so tired, and I felt not so good, I must say. I don't know. I was not, you know, at the right place. There was something, you know, not in perfect harmony. And I was in the car, well, passing just in front of all these tombs, which I spent so much time, you know, psychologically, you know, involved with, like, you know, there was a connection between me and this place because I spent so many hours, you know, thinking about them, and for the first time, it didn't affect me, like nothing. There was like, my heart was like empty, and I was, oh, what is happening? What am I losing all the passion? How can it be? And this, I was like, really, like, I felt bad, like, why is that the tomb of User Ramon Erek Mira look like a painting, you know, with some kind of distance. There was a distance, and I felt so bad. And then I just figured out it is because today I'm feeling bad. I'm too tired, you know, I just want to sleep.
It also makes me think that the painters, the people working in the tombs, or the visitors, they also had different conditions when they visited the tombs. So it's very interesting, which also brings me to a question. So how can we differentiate between visitor interaction and decoration?
I see. I see your point.
Because maybe from a non-Egyptological point of view, it kind of looks, it's all the same. But if you look at it longer, if you are willing to accept looking at the tomb, maybe you can find the signs that there is some kind of interaction. There is something that is maybe not supposed to be there. It's not perfect. So is there something how we can see?
The first thing is that what interests what has interested us for so many years was first trying to understand the meaning of these paintings. One good example it's for sure the fishing and falling scene. So many people wrote about how to interpret it, and there was even some kind of different traditions in interpreting it. And you hear of also in Heidelberg, people from Heidelberg, not always, not always agreeing. We spent so many time trying to understand what was the underlying meaning, the symbolical value of all these scenes, interpret the meaning of this and that fish, because we have this lattice or tilapia, it means that, and so we have such a very good narrative about these scenes, which is scientifically proved. So I'm not saying the contrary. First, I thought naively that the visitors would have also reacted on on the same things, like I don't know, something like this fishing falling scene is so nice because now you have
the colors and the way the people are painted.
Yeah, what I want to say is that the reactions and what they say don't really matches our interests as Egyptologists. So there is some kind of gap between, which was to be expected, of course, between the Egyptological interest and view, or views, again plural, and the ancient Egyptian. And in some cases I felt that we're like, we're full of good hermeneutical weapons. We know everything. We cannot everything. We have, how to put this, we have so many tools to interpret correctly all these scenes, and no one can really argue against, because we are fully equipped. And I felt like we knew even better all these images than the Egyptians, because we have the data, we have the documentations, we have this kind of Google Maps view on all this. We have the whole whole picture, the whole historical perspective on it, while they were stuck in their time, in their space too. So and so I guess, to answer your question, what I've seen so far is that when they wanted to mark their reaction, that is to leave an imprint on the wall, so there's some kind of productive aspect in their reaction. It was always related to their socio-professional background or, condition. That is to say that they came there to make use of the tomb in a way. They didn't go there just for fun because it was Sunday, they had free time, It's not, I'm not very into this. Although they could have felt pleasure, this is absolutely not contradictory. You can make use of something and have pure pleasure also. But still, so I guess what the reactions say, contrary to the images themselves, is that what I've seen so far is that all this kind of symbolical underlying meaning of all these scenes is not very often commented on. They probably, some people, and I guess the image makers themselves, because they are part of the audience, of course, they knew. I mean, I assume they knew. Otherwise, we should review all that we've written. But they don't really comment on this. What I would say, they more often react to the indexical value of the image. That is, if we have, I'm sure like an index is like smoke, indicating fire, and so to know what smoke is, you must know what fire is. If you don't know what fire is, then smoke doesn't point to anything.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think this could be an analogy when they look, for instance, at a representation of the vizier's office in the tomb of Rekmira, which is well known, they don't really care to. I mean, they don't comment on the fact that yes, Rekmira is the vizier and he's the judge, and I'm not even sure that they spend so many time reading at the text, because most of the people wouldn't be able to read the hieroglyphs. But what seems to be important for them is the connection to the vizier Rekmira himself, which they knew, because it was one of the most important guy, in the area at that time. So that was meaningful for them, much more than what actually are the duties of the vizier, something that we spend so many time to understand, and we have publications about or what a vizier should be. So yes, I guess this is very simple. It is clear that we look at these things from this with a certain distance, and with them, all these images were probably referring to actual things.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It always reminds me of how we would interpret certain books and literature at school, and the teachers always they had their interpretation, and they read words or sentences, phrases in a certain way, and it was, some teachers focus a lot on one specific interpretation because they are very how do I put this, they believe very strongly in the facts they have and the knowledge they have. And sometimes I fear students would like them to be more open about different kinds of interpretation. And it always made me question if those people who wrote the literature or painted pictures, did they have the intention of making us do interpretation of that stuff? And if yes, are they okay, or are they agreeing to what we interpret? So it's very interesting to see that maybe sometimes you don't have it directly in your mind when you look at Egyptian tombs or pictures or whatever, that people back then also looked at those pictures, and they must have thought something about it. And also, I would like to know, I mean, we talked a lot about reaction and how to interpret it and all that stuff, but is there a specific surprise, or you came along, or is there a specific reaction that surprised you the most, something you still have to think about?
Yes, of course. So with these varnishes, now, so this is my current research project. First, we thought they could have been even, applied by later visitors. Then, in one tomb, it is clear that they were contemporaneous with the rest of the decoration, meaning that they were applied by the original painters. That was on the first hand. So I have a colleague who studied the painterly techniques. So he had his view on, I would say, a more material aspect on these colors, coatings. And I was looking at them more with the questions that we've just discussed. And so yes. So this project actually began in 2017, and we were in the tomb of Chanuni, which I guess the publication is right there in those red.
Of course, we have it.
And there are some well-preserved varnish residues there, and we hadn't permission to make pictures. We were still waiting from the taftish, the authorities there, the local authorities. And so we were there making drawings, taking notes. And at some point we got closer to those residues, because we wanted to really see how they were made. There is this exactly. No, yeah, the pigments, but also these varnish residues, and so they are they got yellow over time, obviously, and we wanted to, well, simply to come closer, and at a certain moment we were very closer, and then we wanted to clean them a bit, just to prepare for the picture, because we knew we could make the picture after, but still we were waiting. And then there was this scent that these residues were exhaling, and we were, what's that scent? This is really curious. How come that this material still has a scent after 3,000 years? And then we began to investigate what was the reason for that scent, and then this led us to, assume that they were made of the same resins as quite a lot of products, substances, including incense that was burnt in temples, but also a wide range of cosmetics. And so there was this connection through the scent, and then we carried on, and this is what I'm going also to talk a bit about tonight. We figured out that the motifs, that in some cases when there was a selection by the painters, the motifs that were varnished often had some kind of olfactory dimension, meaning that the painters wanted to underline this very aspect of the representation that is a more olfactory aspect. So there's the visual, of course, because we are dealing with paintings, but above it or next to it or beyond it, whatever, there is kind of olfactory. And so I was like, oh, is this possible that these paintings all had some kind of scent, smell, some kind of multi-sensory thing? It's very fashionable, by the way. We discuss a lot about this, multi-sensory landscape in the antiquity. We all want to know how it felt to be in a Roman temple. There's not only the visual, because this is what, of course, is accessible to us through archaeology, art history, text. We read that text. We need our eyes to read text, but it's also the auditory, the fact that also the sense of touching. With statues, this work, I remember when we were at the museum, when we were in this class of Egyptian art, and Roland Tefna made us touch the statue of Amenhotep II, just to see how strong he was, because it was red granite, so it was okay, you can touch it, it's very strong. But I used to say that it seems that there was an intention by some of these painters to underline this kind of olfactory dimension, and this really struck me. I never expected to come across this kind of dimension.
I love that you talk about the fact that there's a smell, and you can still smell it, and they had different scents. And I always ask such questions to my teachers, and there's a fun fact about scents, which I don't want to tease in the podcast. So I will tell you afterwards. Okay. But I really do love that it's not only looking. We can do smelling. We can do touching, feeling. It's very interesting. And just from one question and one answer to the question, we can see how many aspects really goes into researching, which is absolutely fun. It's amazing. So I can't believe I was worried that I had too little questions. So now I have to really choose what to ask next, because we also have some sort of time limit for the podcast episode as well. I hope the viewers are still interested. I mean, they probably are. I wish the people out there could see how your eyes are lighting up when you're talking about stuff. I love that. That's something that always also keeps me in the major, because I remember when I was younger, and I was so interested in this topic and in ancient Egypt, and everybody told me, forget it, give up, don't do it. And then there were people who were like, but can't you see how excited this little child is about the whole stuff? And when I was in the museum, some of my friends and my little sister, they love going to exhibitions with me and just looking at me or hearing me talk about it, because I get so excited about it. And seeing real Egyptologists that are doing their PhD or have it already, talking with the same excitement, that also makes me excited to keep going. I love that.
I think if you're not excited anymore, then you should quit, because I don't know, there's no point. I guess that this enthusiasm is also can be used as some kind of motivation to dig more into a subject. And when you need inspiration, it's always good to, cross the Nile and see if you have new ideas coming up. I mean, how can't you be enthusiastic with this? And I must say that this is maybe more personal, but I've never really understood why science had to be in some aspects that serious. And I mean, put outside any kind of emotional mindset, because I think this is counter nature. We are. It's just that we have to know that what's how we're really driven. It's just a question of epistemology or methodology, whatever.
Yeah, that got philosophical very fast. But to go back to the topic, I have one question regarding your research. I definitely want to ask, because especially this episode, we talked a lot about the psychological effects. What does it do with us? What did it do to the people in ancient Egypt? So I would like to know, what do you think? What can we learn from the reactions in the tombs? What, maybe not even only Egyptological, but also for life. What can we take with us?
To me, what was important, and I guess it's very simple. Maybe it's just against this kind of correlated visions of the Egyptians being like one der Ägypter. There was no one Egyptian. I guess the German term is very telling in a way, how before we would see these people as ants working for a king, but it's also implying that they would behave the same according to their culture and all this. And it's not that I was surprised, I would say relieved to see that they were also human as us. And it was, one can read in some articles that because of all these decorum things, these rules, these religious codes, they would behave so with very strict commandments, especially in these sacred contexts. And this is also part of the vision we have of religion, and that it has to be strict and serious. And if you speak with anthropologists, I guess very often what they see in different cultures, outside monotheistic traditions, that it's much softer than, and this derives us a bit. But I have a friend, he was in India, and he sent me on WhatsApp a picture of I guess a Buddhist temple with a Donald Duck statue.
No way.
In the enclosure. And I was, what is this thing? this is wonderful. We can have so many questions, but why why is that some priest there?
Yeah, it should be a serious place.
But maybe they found it serious to have this Donald Duck statue. We don't know. I mean, I would have loved, to have this.
Yeah, of course, me too.
But this means that it was okay. It was systemic. I mean, it was not against the system. I mean, how the temple functions, to speak in this kind of, with this terminology. It functions. It works with the people. Coming there to perform rituals, and they have this Donald Duck, and I was okay. I look at this setting as a Westerner, and for me, Donald Duck it's absolutely the opposite of to the sacred. So, but maybe this is typically Western, and maybe for them they've just found cool to have a duck statue. I don't know. I'm still thinking about this. Why is that?
It sticks with you thinking about it. It's awesome, and I love how we can, even though to some people it might be just one way we are talking, but really we are just teasing a lot of different feels we can just touch. And I think it's a very good way, or very nice way, to see that even if we have one topic, even if you just say, okay, we have reactions in the Theban tombs, we don't have just reactions, we have so much more with them. So I mean, I would love to talk about this topic for hours, and I think we could also go into psychological and philosophical aspects a lot more, but sadly the episode also has to come to an end somehow. So as always, we have some concluding questions. I mean, we kind of talked about the first one already. So I wanted to ask what you recommend future Egyptologists, and like you said before, the enthusiasm, the motivation that keeps you going. But of course, if you have anything to add, you can do that. Otherwise, I would go to the next question. So do you want to add something?
I don't know, maybe. Yes, I guess. I think it's worth remembering that we're in this very ideal time frame, or this moment of within the evolution of our Western culture, where all this is telling to us, where we find cool to go and to we have this interest for Egypt. It's not new, of course, but maybe in 100 years, I don't know what's going to happen to our civilization, and I don't know if in 100 years ago we will be still affected by these researches. So I guess we should simply enjoy doing that as much as we can, because maybe this won't last. I guess this won't last. I think sometimes I feel like we are like at the end of our new kingdom, maybe
the new kingdom of Egyptology.
I guess there is some analogy between the 20th dynasty and maybe not, but there is this kind of 20th dynasty, 20th century, and 21st dynasty, 21st century. I hope it will be better. I mean, but you see my point. I mean, I guess this interest won't last, so let's enjoy the possibility that we have as a historian and linguist and archaeologist to spend so much money, because this is also the case, money and time, and with all these dead people.
I mean, yeah, and also talking about just options you have. So do you have a wish regarding scientific communication? Because with social media on the rise and everything, a lot of scientific majors are getting out there and making it more accessible. So do you have anything for our Egyptological field, or for Egyptology in general, that you would like to see in communication on social media or in the news or wherever?
I think there's a possibility, always a possibility to fill the gap between the broad audience expectation with respect to all that concerns Egypt, and what the actual scientists are really doing, Egyptologists are doing it, because I feel there's some kind of gap, and I'm almost sure that most of the Egyptologists would have something interesting to say to the broad audience, and I think this remains important. I fear that our discussion gets close and close, and that at the end Egyptology only concerns a few, old people. And no, I think the connection with the audience is important, and I would prefer that we have more fluid connections between the scientific discussions and exhibitions, things like that, and that we don't always have to illustrate and feed the very basic expectations towards Egypt. And because sometimes it's that people want to see gold, then you have, okay, if you want gold, I have the mask of Tutankhamun, but maybe we can also make them their visions evolve according to new perspectives. So I guess this is something that remains.
That's a good point. I would love that, and I hope that the new generation of Egyptologists can put out a vision.
Yeah.
So we will see how it goes.
We'll see.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe in a few thousand years somebody will look at this, at Egyptological output on social media, and they will interpret it like the tomb reactions. I don't know, maybe. So this was a lot of serious stuff, but I have one last concluding question to make it a bit more, we're also human. So we not only have scientifical ancient Egypt, we also have pop culture ancient Egypt. So which presentation about ancient Egypt in pop culture do you like the most? Can be anything, a movie, series, character, a game.
It's a good question. I spent some time looking at the Afrofuturistic, representations of Egypt, and I found it quite cool. Especially this figure of Sun Ra, the musician, the experimental jazz man. And so he didn't direct the movie, but he was in that movie, Space is the Time, and so his use of ancient Egypt and this whole myth, as the way he puts it, I like it because it has some real social outcome, which is in this case, this can be commented on. So there are people that are much better, to discuss all this, because I think we're dealing with American studies. It's something very serious. But what I mean is that as an Egyptologist, I found very interesting to see how someone from the Afro-American community of the 20th century made such an interesting it's about freedom too, a free use of ancient Egypt to give to a community some kind of myth to rely on, and for clear social reason, social cultural reason. I understood how it must feel. I didn't understand, but I had a feeling to come closer to this feeling of being cut from any roots. I'm talking about this Afro-American community. And so the connection to ancient Egypt, whether historical or not, this is not important. Absolutely not. This is not about history. It's about the power of myth. How modern myth can be important. and I guess that's, although it's fancy, it's very, I mean, the way, so basically he got his clothing and did all these Thoth and Horus and Sekhmet masks from, I guess, an opera house, where he could buy them. But what he gives to his community and to the world is, it's something to reflect on. And I guess as historian, we also have a responsibility, as doctor, we have this responsibility to make good, to do good to the society. And this is totally beyond any scientific rule, because this is not very relevant in this case. We don't care whether there's a connection between African people and ancient Egypt. This is not the point. But it's very useful to give these connections. And here we are beyond science. So I think this is maybe a nice pop. It's not very pop culture. It's a bit too serious, I must say. Otherwise, yes. There's this very funny video of Michael Jackson's Remember the Time.
I love that one. I was so amazed. I mean, of course you can talk about with the discussions about cultural appropriation, but I remember watching that movie. I had a huge Michael Jackson phase back then. Sometimes I still have it, but I just loved it. I always loved seeing just a snippet of ancient Egypt and pop culture. It was awesome. I do love that song.
What's interesting is that the video is from the 90s, but still there is, apparently Egypt still has some kind of credit, and I guess it's because it provides a ready-made aesthetic, corpus. I mean, a corpus of aesthetic forms and that are very immediately identifiable, but also that are, all in harmony with each other. So one has nothing to really create. You have a whole set of things. And so Michael Jackson, when he decided to make this kind of Egypt things, he has the vizier, then you have the dresses, you have the headdress, you have everything. Then you have the queen, you already have the crown of the queen, you have the scepter, you have everything you need as a
very put together.
Exactly. And it of course it will all fit. So I guess this is interesting, and it's still very serious. I mean, seriously reused, appropriated.
I think it gives a good picture of what could have been. I mean, of course, he's I don't remember it correctly, but he's traveling and just transforming into some sort of sand. So, I mean, the Egyptians probably didn't do that, but still, we could do a whole episode, or probably several episodes out there about pop culture. But I would say that's it for today. Thank you so much for coming to the podcast.
Thank you for your kind invitation. It was a pleasure.
I enjoyed it very much. I hope the viewers are still sticking with us and still here. If you made it until here, I'm giving you a cookie virtually, or maybe Egyptian bread as a treat. So thank you so much for listening to our English episode this time, and I will see you next time.